Professor Pete, we're going to continue to stack lighting and rendering. We're going to stack more on Toon shaders. We're going to look at something even more powerful, and it's called OSL shaders, open source language shaders. So here's the documentation from Arnold and how we can use these OSL shaders and make some pretty crazy effects. We're not going to go through all of them. We're going to look at cross-hatching. We're going to look at tone mapping in terms of halftones. And there's a couple other ones in here that I think are kind of interesting and fun, so we'll have a look at them too. Let's get right to it. So this is the output I've already created. I've created this halftone effect on the shadows. And if we look at my system of creating this, we'll have a look at it. I applied it already to the skin. So I started off with the Toon, the typical Toon in the map to material. But instead of going through all this other extra stuff, I end up having a OSL halftone. So to get to this OSL halftone dots, and it's a map already. So there it is, drag it in. And I'm going to go and create a ramp. So if you look at the ramp position, this is kind of crazy. This is how I created the ramp to then affect the amount of dots on the character's face and just the shadows. So if I were to just change this, and again, you can just make this ramp pretty easily and just put the input. But if I could just drag this across and make it black half of it and then gray for about 75%, you'll see the difference when I render this out from the original. So you can see there's very, very little of that halftone in the skin. So that's why I end up going with so much black almost all the way to the very end to give a little bit more of that halftone effect. So that halftone, kind of like that newspaper print, looks pretty good when you are able to just move that ramp over. And it all depends on the scale of your geometry. So you need to play with that a little bit for the ramp RGB into the input value of that halftone. I can just show you too. I just went and dragged that into the input value there. And then from there, I went from the input value or the out position to the base tone map. So I can just delete this one, and it should give us the same effect. I can double click on this halftone, and there were some differences. So the black dot and the fuzz I changed. So the black dots can be a different color even. So you can make it a yellow and output that out, and it's going to look like yellow dots on our skin. So pretty neat. You can increase the fuzz amount too, so the dots are just like a little bit more random and bigger. You can also change the scale too to make them even bigger than that. So it doesn't look very vibrant. So fuzz of 2, then go back to maybe just like a blue. Okay, so that's the halftone effect. And let's have a look at some other ones. Let's look at Rivet. So I'm going to just take this out from the base tone map, and I'm going to go into the Rivet. So I just typed in Rivet, and there's the map OSL. And I double click on it and dragged it in. You can see that there's a scale, number of rivets on the UV and the radius, amount of dirt. This is, I think, set to 0.1 by default. I changed it around a little bit. But let's go ahead and just put this rivet into the color and the base color, or the tone map. I'm just going to put base color for now, render this out. And you'll see that her face starts to look like a rivet, a bunch of rivets on her face. Okay, so I decreased the scale a little bit more than what I think originally was. So you can see how you can start to really stack this up. 0.02. So there's going to be even more of a effect on the amount of tiling on our face. And the probability, the rivet centers, you can all adjust this as well. And the bump and the wobble scale. Let's put the wobble scale up to 5 just to exaggerate it. And we can just have a look at it now when it renders. So again, I really don't know how you'd use this, but you might find a use for it somewhere, maybe on some sort of surface. But there is now this character that looks like she's metal or something. So I'm going to take this out again from color, and oops, I'm going to take this out from. So I'm going to take this out from the base color and no longer use this map, this rivet OSL. And now let's focus on this candy one, which I think is kind of funny too. So just type in candy here and then just drag it in. And you'll see the scale, radius, bump amount, and UV, W. And we can just put the color over to the same. We'll go to the base color, the base tone map, and we'll render this out. There you go. So again, I changed the values a little bit. Scale, radius, set to 1, just to give it a little bit more to it. And also kind of strange, similar to rivets, but it can be used possibly for something. I don't know. maybe some sort of surface. But it's kind of fun to see how it looks. But I think base color looks a little bit better because it just seems to be less even, and the highlights, kind of get blasted out. So that's how candy looks. Another one that's really practical is using the line art, the cross hatching. So we're gonna put the float first off. It's called Uber noise. So type in Uber noise. It may not show up. Okay, so if this happens, then we will have to go and load. You have to load the OSL onto the file that I'll provide you. So it'll be a map like this. So it'd be an OSL map. It's empty. Double click on it, and then you type the code. Find the code. The code, I already have a bunch of them in case you don't have them. So there's Fractal Marble. Uber Noise is the one we're going to use. We're going to check the type to cell. Change the scale to 1 because it's too big. And we'll put this from float to the mask color. So we're just going to drag this up so we can get to see the mask color. And render this out. The other thing I do change is the edge width scale. So I think by default it's set to 1. But we render this out. We have a look at it. So there it is. That's how it looks. It's pretty uniform. So the mask color, you double click on that and go to the edge width scale and set this to 0.5. Depends on the scale of your object. And that should be it. So when you render this out, it starts to create the lines around where the shadows would be. So again, it looks kind of strange because not everything is cross-hatched, but that's the general look of how it will be. You can double click on it and then also change the the power and the jitter. I don't know, let's just play around with this. 2 is the most we can do there. Distortion amount, let's put as much as we can, maybe 5 or 10, and see how it looks. It looks pretty uniform here, so just by changing those numbers around, it should give it a different look. So it does kind of look a little bit better, but some of those lines seem to be pretty mathematical. But that is a pretty cool effect to make it look cross-hatched. So let's say we want to put this float on this Toon map, also on, let's say, the hair. So we go find the hair. Okay, so I'm over by the hair now, and you notice the base tone map on this RGB. We can turn this thing off. This RGB was used to create that cell shading look. And now we can apply that OSL map to the mask color. So it's on the float to the mask color. And now the hair will also look cross-hatched. We can click on the map as well. And the base color is still set to brown. Other things we need to turn on are the edge width scale. Again, it's set to 1, so we may have to change that. The mask color is on. We may need to change a couple other things. Spec weight is fine at 0, and everything else looks okay, so we render this out. You can see there, it looks, again, the weight of it is pretty high, so as I expected, we need to modify the edge width scale a little bit. 0.3 to 0.5, again, for this model, and that should look okay. So that's how it looks. Looks pretty good, and again, that's to apply it onto the hair. So let's have a look at the last thing, and this is weave and OSL. Just type in OSL, just type in weave here, and there it is, the map. And we can apply this weave. Again, this is usually good for different fabrics. So let's apply this to what we can see now is a scarf. So let's go to the map on the Toon for the scarf, and we can apply this color or bump to the base tone map. In this case, let's try it on the base color, see what kind of effect it creates. And now the scarf will look like this got fabric. So again, maybe it's better on the tone map rather than the base color. If I double click on the OSL weave, we can see the scale, and it's set to 0.001. Width and roundness, let's keep going down here, 0.0001. And have a look at it. And so again, could be fun and useful for adding a little bit more depth to your fabrics. And as you can see here, it's starting to look pretty good, 0.001 in terms of the fabric. But also this kind of lost its color. The base color is set to the map, which is the RGB ramp. So we can go in here and change the value there to bring that blue back. So as you can see, there's so much you can do with OSLs now that we've put them in. And just in case you want to do it for yourself, let's have a look at that too. So under the OSL shaders, in the browser under Arnold, it says the examples can be found here. So click on here, and there's not a lot of documentation, but it's going to be the 3D Max shipping shaders. Some of them are already included in 3ds Max 2020, but since this is 2021, there's additional ones. So you see that there's color juggler. Again, I never use this one, but let's say you wanted to. What you could do is just click on it, and then you'll copy and paste the text. So take these 26 lines of code, you copy it, and you put it into a notepad document. So here's some already here, but I can just go File, New, and go to New Notepad, and just type in, and I can just double click on that, and then I can paste the code and save it. Right now it's set as a text document, so I'll need to go to my view and show file name extensions, and then type in at the end of txt OSL. Okay, so there it is now, and let's say I wanted to bring that into 3ds Max. We go to 3ds Max, and I already have a bunch of random things. Let me just close this so we go back to the skin, since that looked a little bit easier. I'm going to go under here and type in OSL, and I'm going to drag this in, and I will double click on it, and then this is where you put the code, and because it's a file, it's the channel, and there it is. And right now it's not going to be updated, so we just click away to Toon, go back to it, and now you've got the different RGB maps that you could apply to it. Again, I don't know how to use this one, so there's the out RGB, and say we put it on the base color, but we don't have RGB maps on it, so I don't know how this is going to turn out. And again, this is set to the skin. Right now the skin's set to black, it looks like, because there's no RGB maps. Say there is a map, we'll put a bitmap lookup for this one. Let's say we put a symbol gradient. So I'm just going to find some random pictures to put on the maps. Under general bitmap is the second one, and the first one is a family picture. The other one is a black and white storyboard, and another bitmap randomly will be the map. So now when we render this out, again, I put this just the base color. So again, there it is. Pretty trippy and weird. So it looks like it took, all the colors to create this face. So it's pretty wild in terms of the OSL. And again, you can kind of see the map. It's very small. Then being applied to the skin because of the mask. The mask color is still being applied from the Uber noise on the mask color. So you still get the mask color, but then you also get the color from the OSL of the color juggler. So there you go. A lot you can do with OSLs. Hopefully I didn't confuse you more, but I think the big takeaways is the halftone and the cross-hatching. Cross-hatching is called Uber noise, and the halftone is called halftone. And just apply those to the base tone map, the other one to the mask color. And if you just look at the Toon as well, you notice too that my edges are black, edge width. I didn't do many changes, the colors and the specular weight, nothing major there either. So transmission also. All right, that's all I've got. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. We'll see you in the next one.